everyday thing. It's an everyday thing. It's an everyday thing when you let your nuts hang. I guess it's that time. First of all, before you say anything about my shiny face, I'm wearing a mask. I have an event that I have to go to tonight, so I am preparing for that. Hence my bonnet, because I will be curling my hair very soon. It is also a very rainy day here in New York City. As you can see, just rainy and cloudy. So I'm chilling today. But I guess it's time to have this conversation. So let's go. All right. Well, I've already tried to record this once and it didn't take. So take two, but maybe it'll sound better. Who knows? This is my husband and this is me and this is our daughter. And he was murdered in 2008 in our driveway. And I have my notebook. And this will definitely be in multiple parts. But the obvious title is what brought you here. Yes, this was featured on Dateline back in, I think it was 2010. And you're going to find out about it because it's going to be in my book. So yes, I am writing a book, and I have always been writing a book. Not always, but you know what I'm saying. Before this, I was writing a book, and I've already reached back out to the writer. Let's see how we can get this started. But let's talk a little bit about my husband's era. This is the time where I feel like I finally have accomplished my dreams. I actually met my husband the first week at college. My story is similar to my aunt's. My aunt leaves New York and goes to UPenn. I leave New York and go to Penn State. Two different schools. I know. My aunt is Ivy League. I am not. So, but I end up at Penn State and, you know, I meet my husband the first week and we were inseparable. And also like my aunt who marries before she graduates, I do the same thing. We get married before I graduate. And I will do more stories on this, but I want to focus on the obvious, which is, you know, during this time, I have a relationship with my mom. I do not have a relationship with my father. So this is a great loss for my mom as well. She has known him for 10 years and they have a very close relationship. They have a business relationship as well. I'm also 28 at the time that my husband is murdered. And so I'm a widow before 30 and I have a 6-month-old baby. So this was a very difficult time for me. And I just want to talk about just how dark, you know, the depression after that. First of all, I wasn't allowed to grieve my husband. This is the first time I'm talking about my husband's death publicly since the Dateline episode aired about 15 years ago. This is the first time I've talked about it. And mainly because after the Dateline episode, if I wasn't already dealing with a terrible situation, because I was, the backlash that came from that it spiraled for me. And there was some definitely trauma bonding that happened between me and my current, the children my prom date that I ended up reconnecting with after. There's definitely some trauma bonding that happens that I think affects our relationship. But you know, at this time, the FBI is involved. I'm going crazy. His mom is the police. And so I felt extremely hunted. I felt extremely also abandoned. I get it. Who wants to be associated with the person that y'all think killed someone so beloved? And it just hurt. I couldn't grieve my husband. There was no space. There was no opportunity. And there will definitely be stories, but I'm also saving that for the book. But during the time that I would say I assimilate into his family in these 10 years, another version of a Black family. This is a Black immigrant family. And I will share some very honest opinions that his family had towards Black Americans, which is what I am. But he was born in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and he immigrated to this country as a child. And his story is also very layered and complex in, you know, assimilating into American culture. Because when I first met him, I didn't know he was West Indian. I mean, as we get older, we start to figure it out, right? The code switching, because he had definitely done the code switching. And I don't learn that he's West Indian until I call his house and his mother picks up. And I'm like, you're and he was like, yeah, you know. And so I think the conversation that West Indians have in regards to their relationships to Black Americans is definitely nuanced and layered, and we need to continue to have. But getting back to the situation, my mother is very close to him. They end up having a business relationship, and this loss severely affects her as well. And so I end up, me and her go through it as well, and we end up separated right after, we end up back in the cycle of no contact, and struggling and stressing after the loss of my husband. And this fractures us again. And ultimately I end up thinking about how he would feel about my relationship with my mom, because he always pushed for me to have a better relationship with my mom. He never met my father. At this time, I don't have a relationship with my father. We're not speaking. I haven't seen him. And so he never has met my father. But in some ways, I think that time without my father was necessary for me to try a relationship without so much of the trauma always in my face. And I think at the time that my husband and I are together and my mom are in a good place, it allows me to look healed. It allows me to present this healed representation. But, ultimately my husband understands the pain. And it was a wonderful 10 years. And now our daughter's getting ready to go to college. And he's the reason why I went back and got my master's in human rights, and why I want to go to law school. I also need to have more conversation with two of his previous students. And if they see this, and I hope they do, they are so instrumental into my story after his death. And that would be Letha and Shakita. Both who I can get in touch with today, still, after all these years. They've always had my back and supported me, and I want you to know, thank you. I had a whole last video recorded, and then it did delete it. Anyway, yep, here I am. It came out in June of 2011. I don't think the full episode is available. Just know that I still have some very bitter feelings behind this. I was approached by the FBI. Was it the FBI? I can't remember who approached me. It might have been the FBI that approached me to do this. Shout out to my FBI agents. I don't know if y'all watching this. I know you probably saw me get arrested in 2016. It was like, fuck. My bad. It's been a rough couple of years. I mean, my FBI agents weren't terrible, but, still fits. And you guessed it, I don't have a relationship with my husband's family, because it was his mother, the main one, who was accusing me of murdering her son. And she's the Philadelphia Police Department. And no, I don't feel no ways about saying that she was the Philadelphia Police Department, because she got on camera. She got on this show wearing her police uniform. And do you know what that's like for a person to have a police get on the television, and national television, and accuse you of murder? Yeah, y'all sit with that. The grief that came after this episode aired is insurmountable. It really messed me up. I had to work after this. Before this, I'm sorry, I was working and lost my job immediately after. Won that case though. They owed me money for firing me, because there was no reason to let me go. Like, I get it, but that's the power of having the police get up there and accuse you of murder. And before anybody asks me like what I've done since then, this is the first time I've publicly talked about this. So nothing. This is it. Do I still think about this every day? This has impacted my life. This episode caused further isolation between me and my family. I had immediately lost my husband's family. This is a very difficult time for me. But anyway, yep. The episode is called Death in the Driveway. I hated how I looked in this, but this is, again, grief. This is me having a very difficult time. I'm abandoned. I'm struggling, and I get through it. But there we are. I had a whole last video recorded, and then
Okay, so I'm trying to find this video, and it says Death in the Driveway, but it's a white lady, so I don't know if she's absolutely sure that this the that's the title of it. Maybe it is. But it says the woman is in prison.
All right, we're just gonna have to go ahead and talk about this for a little bit. So let's just settle in. If you're new here, please be prepared for the notes that I'm going to have to refer to. But for those of you who've been following, first of all, thank you. I do want to talk about this, and this is going to require more than one part because, hold on. I'm building a process here, slowly but surely. So the first part of the process is I do a not so heavy video so that I'm not so emotional. And then I take a break, get a little distracted, and then try to go in and focus on this. Let's read the question. Do you think she went so hard accusing you because you weren't of West Indian descent? Yes. Yes. I am talking from my lived experience as a Black American and not being of West Indian descent, that culturally we had differences. And it was felt from the very beginning. This woman, his mother did not come to our wedding. I got wedding pictures, but I'm saving that for the book. Yeah, she wasn't there. She was closing on her house. Hey, Viola. I know she watching. I know that woman has a Google alerts set with my name. And so that's why I'm just like, let's just put it all out there. Let's just do it. Because at some point, like, you got to know that this was going to be addressed. And so she didn't show up to our wedding. And they had a very contentious relationship after that in regards to me. Now, I mean, you know, there are differences. Like, I don't believe in the mistress side chick society that quite a few West Indian communities do. Not all. Before y'all come for me. Okay, not all. Because it runs rampant in the Black community too. But there's a system in place in the West Indian community. I watched it. That allows these men to have multiple families back home and in the States. Play with somebody else. I watched it. It is what it is. But I do want to focus on some other things, which is this woman, shortly after my husband dies, her son dies, she sues me in court. She sues me in court for my daughter. She wants what they are calling visitation rights. And when I tell you, I had to fight. And maybe this has something to do with the mother wounds, because I had experienced the separation from my own mother. I was not going to allow the separation of my 1-year-old daughter from me. And I was actually in contempt of court because I refused to hand her over for visitation. That was crazy. And so, and then after I was arrested, she sues me again for custody of my daughter in 2017 when my daughter was like 9. Like, no, like, as Cardi would say, like, clearly we have beef for life. Like, we're never going to be cool. We're not okay. You've never reached out. Yeah, because I'm talking to you because I know you're going to eventually find this shit. You've never reached out. You've never sent your granddaughter a birthday card. You know what and here's the thing. You can't say you didn't know where I was, because every time it was time to sue me, you found me, because I showed up to court every time. Right. I want to also remind people that I was not in touch with my father, who at the time was in and out of prison. And here is my new husband whose mother is a police, decades police, okay? And so I'm multi-generational system impacted. And so, like, I just, you know, my assimilation into the family during this 10-year period was very deep. And I guess, again, similar to what my mom had to do in order to survive. And when I lose my husband, I lose the whole family. No one. And, you know, West Indians have a large family. His entire family pretty much was up there. His grandmother, who, by the way, his father was older than his grandparents. Yeah, we could talk about that later. I'll say it again. His father was older than his grandparents. But there are many layers to the relationship. I know, I see how I just transition, because I have to, let's put some other stuff up. This comment right here. It absolutely shaped the abandonment, again, that I feel of losing a family. And I may have fought with that family and not agreed with some of their cultural or personal beliefs. But that type of abandonment was sharp. You know, I was very close to his sister. And let me just also say this. She's not a mute. She spent 4 years going to the papers, going on television and slandering me. Y'all could pull it up. Like, y'all gonna do it anyway. So not only do you treat me, you just stop messing with me and stop. I'm grieving, but I know I'm not allowed. She's allowed to grieve publicly and privately. I got no space to grieve. And when it came time to hold the person accountable, after 4 years of the state and the Yaden Police Department accusing me and hunting me and investigating me, when they finally had the person who was responsible indicted and went to trial, guess who they asked to testify on behalf of the state? So guess who had to get up on the stand and defend herself now against the killer? For the state. And not an apology. Not a, there were private apologies, but the disrespect was so loud. Y'all ruined my life. On top of losing my husband and being a widow and a single mom, you removed any means of me being able to work, be self-sustainable. These were very dark times. And before y'all bring it up, yes, there was a $2 million insurance policy, but do you think I had that? No, because I had to sue the insurance policy even after the killer was convicted to have the payout. Well, we are now at 7.5 minutes. See you in the next video.
What was his plan for Saturday morning?
He had a class that he needed to do a presentation for in the main campus.
Okay, so take me to that morning. You're asleep.
Yeah. Our routine kind of was he would get up. He always got up before me and would get the baby and would bring her to me as a breastfeeding mother. And, working and taking care of a newborn, you're very exhausted. And so he would bring her to me. One less step I'd have to do. And he said, I'll see you later. I said, okay. And it just, you're in and out of sleep. You roll back to sleep. And that was the last thing he said. He said, I'll see you later.
So you remember him coming in and giving you your daughter?
Yeah.
You saw him walk out?
No, you roll over to feed. You have to. I'm feeding her. It's okay. I'll see you later. And you don't realize that you're not going to see someone later. So.
What's the next thing you hear?
I hear footsteps, and I thought he came back to the house, and I'm like, oh, he must have forgot something. But I hear a lot of footsteps, and then my door leads to a very long hallway, and I see police officers, and I'm like, what are you doing in my house? What's going on? And all he kept saying was, are you here by yourself? And I said, it's just me and my daughter. And he said, I need you to come downstairs.
So you go downstairs, there are police officers in your house, you still don't know why they're there, and they ask you where your husband is. Mm-hmm. And what do you say?
I say, he's at class, he's away. And at this point, I pick up my phone to call him because, I need him to come back because there's something wrong. And I remember an officer asking me to sit down, and he said, what's your husband's name? And I told him his name, and he just says, you know, I'm really sorry, but there's someone in your driveway, and it appears that it's your husband, and he's deceased.
I can't even imagine what that feels like and what that moment is like. Did you scream? Did you yell? Did you try to run to him?
I did. I remember trying to get through the garage because there's just no way that he was out. It's just impossible. And you can't focus on anything other than trying to prove everybody wrong. Like, you can't tell me that's his ID. Someone stole it. That's not him.
Financial stuff, do you think that far ahead at that point? Do you start thinking?
I only remember thinking that I needed as much of my family around me as possible.
Were you in a rough spot financially at that moment when your husband passed away because you were now not going to have his income?
Completely and totally.
He paid all the bills.
He paid the mortgage, I paid the utilities, and so when you see things come in and you don't know what to do or how it's going to be taken care of, yeah, it was rough. Is not the word for it. Almost impossible to manage. I got to the point where not only financially but emotionally I could not manage the household, and I had to move back in with my parents for about a year or so, and I didn't even get a chance to comprehend and go through the grieving process of losing my husband, and I am just now starting to do that work.
How are you going to explain this to your daughter?
We really focus on happy things when it comes to her dad. You know, when I show her pictures, she smiles, she laughs and says, "That's my dad." I said, "Yeah." She doesn't ask where he is. She doesn't, say, "Where is he?" She just smiles because she sees she's in the picture with him. I really just want to be able to tell her one day that, this happened and this was the result. And I really hope that one day the result is the individuals who did this, that changed our lives so drastically, has been held responsible.
All right, so that's part of the Dateline interview. I guess it was good that we threw that in there.
Yeah, I bet you can't find that episode. You know why you can't find the episode? The episode was so bad in how it portrayed me. Remember, the episode aired, originally it said on, I think like June 9th, 2011. Let me go see. My bad. Friday, June 3rd. See, June 3rd. It aired on June 3rd. Look when I got June 6th. Yes, I was out on FMLA because I was fucked up. Everybody saw the episode that Friday, and it called me a murderer. And this, yeah, I've had it all these years. I've kept this fucking letter all these years because I knew one day I got fired while I was out on medical leave because I was struggling with my mental health. I was under intensive therapeutic services while working full time because I have to support my daughter. Like, I get the narrative, but don't get it twisted. Like, I wasn't gonna be out here fucked down with my daughter. Like, y'all, we don't do that. But no, so yeah, I understand why the episode isn't available. Y'all let a whole ass police officer with her uniform get on national TV, accuse a regular citizen of murder because you felt some type of way. Probably felt some type of way because he ain't leave the money to you, if we being honest. Like let's just call it what it is. You mad your son, who you spent all your life toiling away, didn't leave you anything. And you turned that anger out on me. And so, yeah. In April, like, long story short, like, I don't care. Life goes on. If anybody has the original footage, tag me. Tag me. You know, like y'all are gonna look it up. Y'all are gonna look it up, and if you find it, you know, there's some very not nice things. People wrote blogs about me. I got death threats. You know, like I had multiple police departments harassing me. Y'all quiet now. It's been real quiet ever since the trial. And wait, listen, y'all are helping me because I had to clean out some stuff and do some paperwork. But I can't wait to show you the appeal paperwork from the person responsible. And he named everybody that's involved. He didn't take the plea. He took it to trial. And in taking it to trial, you know, that affected your appeals because you wanted to tell it when it was too late. Why did you wait until after conviction? I ain't gonna ask him. It's not difficult to find the killer. It's not difficult to find his appeal. It's all online. That's another reason for my transparency. I can't hide from you what is already out there. I'm just getting ahead of it again. I've always been like that. And it's because people will spin their narratives. Well, no, I was job abandoning my ass. Who gets up a job and they got to take care of a kid? Please. Nope, I was fired. So yeah, I'm not surprised you can't find it. No, I did not know the people that murdered my husband in 2008. And the one piece that never made it to the public and that gets discussed is how the case was solved. We never talk about how eventually the murderers are found out, and never makes it to any newspaper. You can't find it. You can go look it up. You can try. But one of the things you never hear about, no one has ever talked about, is how was this case solved? How was it solved? And ultimately, the police had the information on who murdered my husband about 2 months after he was murdered, and it took 4 years. It took 4 years for them to find, and convict 1 out of the 3 people that are responsible. There is still 2 people that were not held responsible. Mainly the shooter is the one that bothers me the most. The shooter was not apprehended and prosecuted. And I have not looked into the case for a while. I spent a lot of years in the beginning trying to get this case attention. I remember I would send petitions and all sorts of things to different assembly people and senators, and I gathered signatures. I even asked the FBI to look into it. Like I did as much as I could to solve his case. And for years we knew who it was, and instead the police department and everybody else decided to focus on me. And I don't know how much damage or what other lives the person who took his life did in the time that they were allowed to run around rampant. I don't know if that person's still alive. There is appeal paperwork that was put in by the person responsible for my husband's death, and he names the other people involved, particularly the shooter. And I don't know if the shooter is still alive, but it's always beef for life. And so let me be clear, because yes, my daughter is home. I don't know if you heard her. So let me be clear. Months after he was murdered, we knew who did it. They got that person involved in ways that I can't talk about that. They know who's responsible for solving this case. There was a $50,000 reward, and they never gave it to the person who solved the case. And I will forever be bitter that they did that. They gave it back to his mother, who wasn't the only one that put it up, by the way. I can't remember the total for the reward. They gave it back to his mother, and she knows that this case was solved by someone. And she fought me over money, and she begrudgingly took back the reward, and the person who solved the case never got it.
Yeah, so this is over attempted robbery. This is not even the guy wasn't into anything shady or nothing. It was just some guys was out looking for somebody and just attempted to rob him, and they killed him. That's that's all this was. It was just a random act of violence. Not much to add to it.
Was there ever a why he was murdered? First of all, I'm gonna show you the picture of the person that is responsible, but he ugly as fuck. So we're not gonna leave him up there too long. But let's just go ahead and take a look. This is the person responsible. He was the driver, and it is in his words that they attempted to rob him. Let's take a look. Again, all of this is available online. Doesn't take much for it to come up. I found it in 0.25 seconds, okay? And as you can read, this is the person's appeal. So let's just take a moment to read, and then let's talk about the parts that probably stick out the most. Okay, it's a lot. You know, niggas in jail got a lot of time. Let me stop, because if you know anything about my story, you know this is very complex. And yes, we eventually will have the conversation about how I feel today. And should this person continue to serve life? I'm not going to have it right now. We're going to focus on this because right now, let's bring that ass over here, boy. Okay? Yes, come here. Let's take a look. The first is the Edinburgh Police Department in the Delaware County Criminal Investigation Division initiated a homicide investigation that was joined by the FBI in February of 2010. 2010! Okay? This case doesn't make it to trial till like 2014. Okay. Initially, the investigation focused on Mr. Ledyard Wood's wife. However, the summer of 2010, the focus shifted to Mr. Brahim Thomas. Let's just pause right there. When did Dateline air? 2011. So by the time I go on the show, we know who did it. Yet they still made it look like me. Still. And yeah, I end up having to sue. Yeah, because we're going to talk about my legal fucking fees. Of how much it costs for me to defend myself in a murder trial with no charges. Against an insurance company who knew that I wasn't responsible, had been told several times I wasn't responsible, and still refused to pay out, and I had to take to court. And if I find that paperwork of the judge who finally had to give me the insurance money, he didn't want to give it to me. Even though somebody was doing the fucking time and incarcerated, he did not want to give it to me. So no, these are trying times. There's a lot going on, and here we are today. And let me come back real quick to this point. Shout out to Detective Splain. If and when you see this, we started off rough and it got better. For those of you who don't know, I ended up getting thrown out of court at sentencing. I'm gonna do another story time on that. But Detective Splain is really the only good cop, bad cop. And Detective Splain was the bad cop, and then he turned into the good cop. And then I'm surprised they won't do a follow-up interview with you, because they ain't gonna ever get it from me. I don't even know if he's still a detective. I don't even know. I don't know about these people. But yeah. We had a rough, me and Detective Splain. Yeah. Alrighty, let's do a little pivoting here. Okay. Let's jump into this. And this question is just a starting point, but there's a lot of things, and y'all already know. Got my notes here. So let's talk about my baby daddy. And here's why we're going to talk about him, because this is yet what I think a manifestation of my father wounds. And so because of what your dad did, does it feel like you didn't even have a chance to walk a different path in life? when it comes to relationships, yes. Y'all, it's also 9:30 at night. And so I'm a little tired, but let's just keep going. I definitely had some trauma bonding. So after my husband is murdered in 2008, I returned to my parents' house, my mom's house in Newark, New Jersey with my stepdad. Here, I'm going to throw a picture up of us too. You might be interested in that. And, you know, because me and my mom's relationship is good. I still don't have any contact with my father. I don't know where he is. My husband has been murdered. I'm going through this drama of being accused of his murder. And then I moved back. Well, I moved in with my parents in New Jersey. And I still have a house in PA. That's a different story. And then I don't know how long I'm at my parents' house before I get a message from my best friend. And she's like, yo, Adrian has sent me a message on Facebook. He wants your number. And I'm like, I haven't talked to this man. It's been 10 years. It's been exactly 10 years. I left New York City in 1998 to go to college, and I ended up getting married. And in that time of going to college and getting married, I lose my husband. I go back in 2008. I return to the New York, New Jersey area. Long story short, we start talking, and I'm instantly in a relationship. Instantly. And looking back, it's very clear why I'm instantly in this relationship. First of all, I know this person from before this trauma, so like it's familiar to me. We actually didn't date in high school either. And I'm going to throw up a whole bunch of pictures throughout so that you can see. And before I get too deep, no, we are not together today. Gotta wait for that one. Because, baby, when I tell you, father wounds, let's stick to that. I felt extremely isolated after my husband was murdered. And this is like a harbinger to our relationship because, my husband's murder, his death, this case becomes very central to our relationship. It's all I'm dealing with. And, he has to take a back seat to that. And it causes some issues in our relationship. We have issues in our relationship from day one. It's day one. There was a lot going on. It was a lot to bear. I will say he was always supportive of my mental health, but the relationship was very toxic. I am also abandoned again by my mother about a year and a half after my husband dies. And so like I have to move in with him. And so, there's this dependency. There's this like, there's this need. And, that's very reminiscent of how my relationship with my father was, like creating this need and like feeding off of each other, but I go through some very dark moments the first couple of years after my husband dies. And regardless of what me and him have been through, we go through it. There was no one else there for me but him. And helped me take care of my daughter, for real. He has been in my daughter's life since she was 2. This is all she knows. That's her father. Yes, she knows that she has a biological father and she knows what happened. She does know. I had those conversations with her as soon as I felt like she could process certain things. But I feel like my relationship with my father absolutely was how I conducted myself in relationships with men. And, again, just familiarity. He's from Harlem. My dad's from Harlem, like they say you try to date your daddy. Whoremonger just like my dad. Now, why my husband holding my daughter like that? I haven't seen these pictures in years, guys. Let me first say that. Good morning. It is Saturday morning. Most of you are not up yet, but I have to get this video out. I will be live today cleaning. My last video right before this, I talk about hoarding and how I struggle with it, but I'll be doing that today. So you actually have to prepare to clean. If you know, you know how you have to prepare the house to be cleaned. That includes waking all these kids up and organizing everyone's tasks. Anyway, does your daughter have a relationship with her father's side? The answer is no. This is one of the last pictures that my husband has with his daughter. Unfortunately, he was murdered shortly after this. And a few months after that, his family and I went through a lot of issues, mainly legal. And it's crazy that I can only find one pic. I can't find any pictures of his mother doing interviews. That police status must have really worked on her behalf. Oh, but no, hold on. No, I don't have much time. I'm gonna have to restart this. I'm being nice to my husband by showing this picture of you. It's a very fucking rare picture of you smiling, by the way. And yeah, congratulations on your 70th birthday. Don't forget who did your 50th birthday and hosted it at their house. But enough of you, because quite literally, I don't want you on my screen in the same shot with me. So a few months after my husband passed, things become very difficult between me and his mother and his sister. And his mother sues me in family court for grandparent visitation rights in Pennsylvania. And we go through a court battle just on that. His mother also sues the estate, the courts, not to provide me and her granddaughter, his daughter, with support. She petitioned the court and did not want them to give us support to pay the mortgage. My daughter was 6 months old and I was working. So I ended up having to leave my job. And I asked the court for support from my husband's estate to support us. And the paperwork is there. Y'all could pay to go get the transcripts and get it. I'm sure once the book is done, we'll have all of that. But she didn't want any support for her granddaughter. She wanted me to go out there and work, even though her son had provided for us. She wanted me to get up months after he had been murdered and go and work. And I did. Because I gotta feed my baby, you know? For a very long time, it was just me and her. And so, like, look at my baby. She's adorbs. And I remember this picture. That sweater that I have on is the very same sweater that I wore in the Dateline interview. And so that's how old she was when I did the Dateline interview. So the mother sued me to have her visitation. And for a while, I gave into the court until I was demanded to do overnights, weekends, and holidays. I was like, me and her are not parents. That ain't my baby daddy. Like, I ain't married to her. And I had reached a wall mainly because I started to feel like, is this how y'all treated my mom when it came to me? So yeah, there's a lot of parallels about my relationship with my family and with this family. And so in the beginning, she was allowed to do visits, but then I put my foot down because it became like parenting. And I was like, that's not how this works. And you're also accusing me of murder. Like, I'm not going to continue to hand over my child and you are accusing me of murder. Like, what are we doing here? So I became in contempt of court, forced a issue of jurisdiction. It's in the Jersey courts too. Forced her to go to Jersey. And once I get out of PA, she has jurisdiction. She has the playing field in PA. She's the police. Don't be fooled. You may not be able to find a picture of this bitch. Yeah, I said it. Because you was allowed to run your fucking mouth. You was allowed to run your fucking mouth on national TV and on multiple publications and disparage me. And you think you could just stand up there and celebrate your 70th birthday. And I'm glad you did. But guess what? Bring that ass over here. Again, what does she do? She not only sues me for my child, she sues me not for being able to, you don't want me to take care of my child. You sue the court to prevent any child support, any support from the court that my husband left me. And then, that's not enough. You start to show up at my house and harass me. I'm over it. It is 2025. You have done enough fucking damage. And before you... What's crazy enough is that you can go on Lipstick Alley and they have catalogs. See, October 2014, they updated They had originally Caribbean cop versus African American daughter-in-law. Now, they had the full episode up on their YouTube, but it was taken down. But if you go look up Lipstick Alley, here's just some of what I said at court. There's a lot of comments on how people viewed that episode and how his mother treated me. If somebody finds that episode, tag me. But I just want to remind y'all, my story has never changed and my mission has never changed. Feelings about certain situations have, but she tries to sue me again. She sues me again for custody in 2017 after I'm arrested in 2016 for conspiracy and whatnot to grow marijuana. So she stays involved with my shit. Hope I can't wait till you see this, how, because I ain't never forgot. You have all that police and all that power. Why you ain't get the people that was responsible for your son's death? How come you never stood up in court and actually spoke on your son's behalf? We're going to wake it up this morning. If you hear some stuff in the background, it is my kids watching their shows. It is very early in the morning here in New York City. I've been up since about 5. My kid is autistic. She's on the spectrum, so you're going to quite literally hear the same song over and over. Okay. We're also doing some cleaning today, some live cleaning today. So give me a couple hours from this video to hop on live and do that. But let's take a look at some stuff. For years, I did not know the answer to these questions. And yesterday, when I happened to do a search, this was one of the first things that popped up. I have never seen this document until yesterday. And let me tell you right now, wild. I'd always heard the rumors. I always heard the story about my husband's father and his wife. And this document tells it all. But we're just going to stick to the obvious, which is my husband's father is older than his grandparents. He was born in 1976. You can see that right there in the documents. His father was married to someone else, and he was 56 when his son was born. Now, to be fair, this is predatory behavior. I find this to be absolutely disgusting because that made his mom 21 when she had him, about 20 when she got pregnant. She had already had her daughter at 16, his sister. Listen, gather the Caribbeans, gather the St. Vincents. Y'all do the research. Y'all know them Ledgerwoods out there. This a no name out there. Kings and Ledgerwoods. I'm just telling the business like y'all was so lovely into mine. I always had problems with his daddy's issues. Let me also say this. When I first met my husband, his father was already paralyzed. My husband's father became paralyzed when he was 16. I met him when we were in college, and I always noticed the age difference. I was like, there's a 35-year age difference. This ain't gonna be a long video. Yep. So his father is older than his grandparents. And we can have the conversation about the dynamics of what it means to be poor in a country and the need to get out, because they do end up immigrating to the States. And that's a whole nother story, but I just want to focus on the age gap. He was clearly taking advantage of my husband's mom. And I don't like to give this woman no sympathy. I promise you, I see why you a bitch. You went through all of this. You had this man living in your house with your mama and your daddy while he was married to somebody else. And this was this an island. I know they was talking about you. I see why y'all left. Girl, I don't care no more. Living your truth. You come to the United States after having a child at 16 by a man we don't know. There was some allegations of rape. I would assume so. There's a lot that happens. And then you have another child by a married man. Name that boy after the man, so everybody know who the boy is. Everybody see you running around the countryside with the man from the city, or whatever y'all call it in the eyes. Yeah. And then you come to America at some point. You immigrate to this country, and eventually you become the police. And this, I think, significantly impacts how you treat me and your son. Yeah, you know. Truth is, if y'all ask me if it's beef for life, yes. But this is a different story.
Yeah, that's a crazy situation. Man, she telling it all. Like y'all can find old Ray NYC on TikTok. It's RAENYC. She definitely talks more about it, but she posts at least 10 times a day. So be my guest and go through that wormhole. It was hell going through this to figure out what she's talking about, when she's talking about it, and why she's talking about it. So, you know, and this was my actually first time actually listening to all of it because, you know, I don't really sit there. What up? Shout out to Joker TV. She's up in the chat. Shout out to all my moms. Shout out to everybody who pulled up in the building. If you watching this, we just watched a woman who was accused of murdering her ex-husband. Or not ex-husband. It was actually her husband. She was accused of murdering her husband. And the only person that was accusing her was the mom. And she never really gave an explanation about why the mom was accusing her of murder. Like, it's one thing to say, oh, y'all was arguing, or oh, y'all had money problems, or you wanted the life insurance policy, or, you know, things of that nature. But just to just flat out just go and say you did it when there was nothing to tie you to the actual crime, even years down the road, even when they found a guy who did it and they convicted the guy, and still there's no connection between you and the people who committed this crime. So I don't understand why a mom is fixated on accusing you to this day of the unaliving of her son. Now, I do know we was talking about bitter baby mamas in the Twitch chat. No, not bitter baby mamas. What do we call it? What do we call it? Mama's boys. We was talking about mama's boys. So shout out to everybody on the Twitch chat. But you know, listen, I've heard about Caribbean women and the way they are protective over their sons. I mean, look at the Notorious B.I.G. story. She would not let that man play off the stoop. And I remember like listening to other people, mainly in the East Coast area where I know a lot of Caribbean people are, and I know some out there, where they talk about, I mean, their parents would only let them play, like they had to play the radio on the porch and sit by the radio because somebody would steal the radio, obviously, and they didn't want nobody to steal the radio. But they had to be there, sitting there, you know, and they couldn't go nowhere. I guess they call it stoops, you know, staircases, whatever the case. In these houses, you know, you go down the steps and then you go down some other steps and there's somebody that live below you, which is crazy. Like all type of shit. I seen so much stuff about, you know, Caribbean people and families and how they was so strict. So I'm pretty sure they was very strict on him, and that his daughter looked just like him too. That's crazy because like in that it was a picture where she showed her the girl like maybe at 2 or 3 or 4 years old, looked exactly like him. You know, so that's crazy. But sad story, man, and you know, prayers out to Ray.